The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. Therefore I will hope in him.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday evening Bible class. We're glad to have you with us. For those of you at home, we're glad that you're with us, and we hope that the class will be beneficial to you tonight. Considering George is not here, I'm not sure about that, but George needed a night off. He's out. He's had something to do today, so he couldn't be here. So I will be taking his place. Well, I can't take George's place, but I am going to be standing up here. So we're glad that you're with us, and we do have a few announcements before we continue. Chris is going to lead us in prayer after these announcements. Found out today that Betty Brittle had surgery for an infection in her skull today, so I haven't heard any updates on that, but continue to remember Betty in your prayers. Also, Marie Camp had an MRI earlier this week, and she now has an appointment with an oncologist. Dwayne Bivens hopefully had his heart cath. I haven't heard about that either. I was going to try to call Pat this afternoon to find out, but I got tied up and I just never got around to it, but I need to find out. But he was supposed to have his heart cath today, and he's had so much trouble trying to get that heart cath that I don't know for sure if it happened or not, but we hope it did, and we hope that everything's okay with him. Hey, Tom. If you haven't heard, Walter is back home now. They brought him. He came home today. He's doing well, considering. From what I understand, there's no residual effects from the aneurysm, but he is still very weak, and he needs to get his strength back. He's also, if you saw the announcement this afternoon, it came out this afternoon, he's also in need of a walker. So if you have a walker, or if you know somebody that has one that they can borrow, okay, we'll call Faye. Okay, Faye, call Faye, and she'll, you can, y'all can work it out. She said if you can't come to the house, then they'll work it out to come and get it. Okay. Also, Faye is. She'll be in contact with her surgeon next week about putting the screws in her hip. So she's had to put this off for several weeks now, and we know that she's been in terrible pain. It's been hard for her, but hopefully she'll be able to get that done next week. Also, Linda now, as far as I know, they're still in Alaska. So with Anita, and I'm not sure exactly the timeline when they're supposed to be coming home, but we want to keep them in our prayers, along with Ellen Lorenzana. She's up there with them, and they're trying to help Anita get ready to move back to Georgia. So continue to remember them in their prayers. I'm really ought to be thankful that they really had their health was well enough that they could travel and do that. I mean, that's it was good. They were kind of worried about it for a while, but it seems like they made it fine. And from the post that Linda's put on Facebook, it looks like that they're having a real good time. Please, as we say every week, please read the Connect when it comes out. It came out a little early this week, but it did come out yesterday, and there are several people that need our prayers. There are several on there that are waiting on tests. There are several that's waiting for surgeries or will have surgeries in the future. We need to remember all these in our prayers. There's several that lately have been released from the hospital, and they're recovering from surgeries. Dennis Hancock, of course, he was here Sunday. He's at home now. Rod Jarvis was here Sunday also, and he just had hip replacement surgery last week. So I think he's going to do his rehab at home. And Melba Hamrick is in rehab for her hip replacement. So all these, we want to remember them in our prayers. And like I said, read the Connect and find out who needs your prayers and contact them and send them a card or give them a call. Another thing that we've been mentioning too, and we haven't mentioned it enough, we should have been mentioning Stephanie, Tom and Laverne's granddaughter, as you remember, lost her house a couple of weeks ago in a fire, lost everything in the house, and then she found out like 2 days later that she had a tumor, and it is cancer. It is cancer. So we want to continue to remember not only her in her prayers, her and her husband in her prayers, but also we had a box out here, and Laverne come and picked up what we had, but if it's not back out there right now, we are putting it back in there, out there on the Welcome Center, and anything that you can do to help, whether it be gift card or cash or and you can see Tom and or Laverne or somebody about if you have maybe clothes or something that they can have or anything else that they might need, you can see Tom or Laverne about that. And but we do want to help them out, try to do everything we can for them, because I know it's a strain on Tom and Laverne also, and because they're having to go back and forth to Dublin, and but remember all of them, Tom and Laverne and Stephanie too, in your prayers that the cancer won't. They'll be able to take care of it, and to be able to they'll be able to get rid of that cancer. Anything else anybody has that we might want to pray about tonight? Chris?
Let's pray together. Most gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day of life and for waking us up this morning and bringing us here, getting us through the day and bringing us here. As for blessing us throughout the day, for loving us and taking care of us. So thankful for all the many ways you love us and take care of us and provide for us. Father, we all here are here because we love you and we're here to worship you, and we pray that our worship is acceptable, that we gain wisdom from worshiping tonight. Father, I pray for all those on our sick list, for all those who have had recent surgeries, for all those who are waiting on test results, for all those of our number that have cancer, or whatever they may be dealing with health-wise, Father, I pray for each and every one. Some are serious, some are not. And I pray your blessings on each and every one, whether it's serious or not. I pray that you'll comfort them for whatever they're dealing with, in whatever they're dealing with. Comfort them and their families. Put their minds at ease, Father, and give them peace. That you're with them. Let them know that you're with them, each and every one. For Miss Betty, for Marie Camp, for Dwayne Bivens, for Faye and Walter, for Alan, Linda, and Ellen as they travel back. For Dennis Hancock, Rod, and Melba Hamrick. For my mother-in-law, Dawn Peavy. There's so many more, Father. Seems like there's always someone sick or in need of surgery or something's going on health-wise with many of our number all the time. And it's hard to watch the ones that we love go through these things, but I pray that they trust in you, that we trust in you, and understand that you're going to do what's best for them. And we pray that your will always is always done. Pray, Father, that we aren't anxious for anything, that we put our trust and faith in you through prayer and supplication to always give thanks. And I pray that we strive to be faithful until the end and always try to resist sin and temptation. And we know that you're watching us and that you see us trying every day. Please give us strength to resist temptation, to resist evil. I pray, Father, that as we study your word, as we read your word, and as we let our light shine for you, that we go stronger in you, that we go closer to you, and we strive to be more like your Son every day. Be with us during this worship hour, and just thank you so much, Father, for all that you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
One thing I meant to mention a while ago was in our announcements is more of a, I guess not really an announcement. Everybody knows about Camp Canaan coming up next week, but we do have, seems like we do have enough of teachers and people that we need. I'm going to tell y'all, it come real close to canceling camp this year because we could not get any volunteers. And I don't know what, when we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and Carol and Tracy Gorla were the only two that had volunteered so far, but we do have, looks like we do have enough now to go, but we want to remember the camp in our prayers. I mean, it's something, it's a good thing. I mean, it's good for not only the church here and the kids here, but also kids in the surrounding areas also. So we want to remember, continue to remember the camp. And by the way, I should have said something a while ago. Faye and Walter's probably watching, and Faye, if you're watching, that was Barbara Matthews that says she had a walker. So I should have said that a while ago. Sometimes I forget that we're communicating over the airwaves. So, but Barbara said she did have a walker. So if you want to contact her, Faye, or she can contact you, whatever. But anyway. All right, as I said, George isn't here tonight. He could not be here, so we tossed a coin, and guess who lost? So I'm going to be looking at chapter 45 of Genesis, and we'll go back a little bit to just to kind of recap, and it's a familiar story, so we're not going to spend a lot of time recapping the story of Joseph, but Joseph, of course, sold into slavery by his brothers, and went to Egypt, was in the house of Potiphar until his Potiphar's wife made advances, and he was sent to prison because of her lie, and he stayed in prison a while, and you know all the story where Pharaoh had a dream. Of course, he told the dreams of the men in prison. Pharaoh had a dream. They brought Joseph in, and he told him his dream, and basically made Joseph ruler, basically second in command, basically to him. So what it amounts to, that it's all coming together according to God's plan. Joseph, you remember, had told his brothers years before, that he had this dream, and that they would bow down before him, and that their jealousy and all that, just they couldn't take all that, so they got rid of him. They wanted to kill him, but they eventually sold him into slavery. So now they're in. He's in Egypt. He's the second in command. They get hungry. They got to have food. There's a great famine. There was 7 years of plenty, and then there's 7 years of famine, and they're needing food. So where do they go? They find out there's food in Egypt, so they're going to go to Egypt and get food. The brothers go into Egypt. And Joseph recognizes them right off the bat, and he knows who they are. He asks them all kinds of questions. How's your father? And that's it's kind of strange. I mean, one of the first things he asks them is that, is your father still alive? Do you have any brothers? It's kind of like, can you put this together here? I mean, you see the recognition in your eyes or something like that. But they didn't know, had no idea who he was. To them, that he was just an Egyptian or whatever that was in charge of the food. And so he told them that they couldn't come back unless they brought their younger brother with them. Simeon stayed, and he kept Simeon, sent him back home. Jacob would not send Benjamin. He was afraid to send him, and he had to. Eventually, he had to. Joseph basically is testing his brothers here in all this. He's testing his brothers. They sold him into slavery over their jealousy, and he really has to find out, have they changed? Are they still like they were? I mean, what would they do to the little brother if they bring Benjamin here? Would they leave him and try to save themselves, or what would they do? So he's basically testing his brothers here and trying to find out if they're really sorry for what they did, or if it's just part of something they would do. Would they be willing to sacrifice Simeon and Benjamin to save themselves? And that's the questions he's trying to answer. They ran out of food, and they had to go back to Egypt. But Jacob wasn't going to let Benjamin go. He said, no. He lost Joseph. Now he's lost Simeon. He didn't want to take that chance of losing Benjamin. And remember he asked, why did you tell him all this? Why did you tell him you had a father? And why did you tell him you had another brother? You remember that? And they said, well, he asked us pointed questions. I mean, he asked us, is your father still alive? Do you have a brother? I mean, he asked us those questions. But finally, he had to relent because they were getting hungry. They ran out of food. So he had to do something. So the situation seemed dire, so he had to send them back. They were running out of food, they're running out of grain. But, you know, he wants to send a gift now. He said, well, let's just send them a gift. Let's send, you know, sort of sweeten the pot a little bit, you know. We'll send them a little balm and a little honey and some myrrh and spices, and we'll even send them some pistachio nuts and almonds. You know, that ought to get him, you know. So they loaded up their stuff and they took off back to Egypt. So we kind of get to where we're at today. Judah makes an impassioned plea to Joseph. Well, the story, of course, goes that they went back and they took Benjamin with him, and you remember the story of the cup, how he put it in Benjamin's sack, and they found it, and here's what proved it to Joseph that everything was fine, because when they got Benjamin, they carried him back to Joseph, but you know, his brothers could have said, oh, well, he's gone, let's go. You know, they could have gone back to Jacob, but no, they went back with their brother to Joseph. They went back with him. So that really kind of proved to Joseph, I think, that, you know, these guys have changed. You know, they maybe gotten more mature, gotten a little older. They have changed. So in verse chapter 44, Judah makes a very impassioned plea to Joseph, and after he makes this plea, and starting in chapter 45, it says that Joseph couldn't control himself any longer. You know, all this stuff is going on. He sat down and ate with them. He did everything with them. He talked to them. He asked them questions. He gave them food. He, you know, put their money back in their bags and all this. And, you know, they were kind of nervous about all that. But, you know, he spent all this time with them and trying to find out, I guess, how they were thinking or what they were thinking. But after this plea, Joseph couldn't control himself no longer. He once again began sobbing, began crying. Now, at this point, this is the third time that we see where he had cried during encounters with his brother. The first time, you know, was when they first come and he was questioning them, and they were talking among themselves, you know, and he couldn't. They didn't realize he could understand everything they were saying. So, but, you know, and that kind of, you know, I guess it kind of made his heart a little warm or something. I mean, he started crying at that point. In chapter 43, he talks about when he saw Benjamin the first time, he started crying. So that wasn't the first time in the encounters with his brother that he cried. But this time, he had sent his servants and so forth out of the house, but yet he cried, I guess, so loud that everybody heard it, and then the word spread throughout the kingdom and throughout the palace, and they all heard about it. He realizes here that clearly his brothers had more love for the father's second favorite son than they did for him. So he emptied the room of everyone except his brothers. You know, this is the climax of the entire story of Joseph. You know, how many of us would love to be in that position? You know, to go through all that, you know, I'm not saying be sold into slavery, but to go through all that, all the stuff you had to go through, you know, you've been done wrong, been rejected in some way, and then you go on and you know, they go their way, you go your way, and then years later, you become important, I guess you'd say. There's a situation where you have the upper hand over them. You know, you're able to do something for them that they need, and then they come to you, and, you know, how many people would really see that as an opportunity? Yeah, right. You sold me into slavery, and you know, or whatever you did to me, and you know, you think I'm going to help you? You think I'm going to do something for you now? So a lot of people would love to be in that position, to have the opportunity to punish somebody that hurt you, and not really have to suffer any repercussions. Joseph obviously would not have to. He could have killed him right there. He could have executed him. I mean, and nobody would say anything because he was the second in command. Excuse me. I still got a lingering cough. It's no wonder when Joseph did reveal himself to them that they were terrified at his presence. That's the way the NIV puts it. The ESV says they were dismayed. But and I like the ESV version, but the NIV really makes it plain that they were really scared. They were really terrified of him. This term that's used here, it's used in the Old Testament to describe that sickening, gut-wrenching feeling when you know your army is in trouble. You know, when you know you're fixing to lose, when everything's all is lost in battle. That's what that's the term that's used. Let's look a little bit at the verses. Read at least the first 7 verses of 45. It says, then Joseph, or first 8 verses, I guess. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried, make everyone go out from me. So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. So Joseph said to his brothers, come near me, please. And they came near, and he said, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you that sent me, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord to all his houses, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. So Joseph basically here is telling them, hey, you know, what y'all did to me was part of God's plan. You know, it wasn't just something that happened. It was all part of the plan of God's plan, and we'll go into a little bit more of that a little bit later. This probably ranks as one of the most important passages in Scripture. His ability to forgive them, his urging them not to wallow in guilt, not to feel guilty about what they did, that God used their sin to his glory. During his 22 years in slavery, or in Egypt, let's put it that way. During his 22 years, he was able to see God's plan at work. He was able to see little by little what was going on. You know, when he first got there, he was highly favored, and he was put in a place of prominence. When something happened there, he was put in prison. But when he got into prison, what did they do? Put him in charge of all the prisoners. So he was, you know, there was always a plan, and Joseph began to see that plan, I think, as he went along. And then, of course, eventually he was able to get out of prison, and he served Pharaoh, and was able to help a lot of people because of his abilities and his God-given abilities, really. But he was able to see God's plan at work. He understood his brothers had sinned. I mean, that was there's no question about that. His brothers did sin. They were wrong in what they did. I mean, they were jealous, just because that, they felt like that his father favored him more than them, and he did things for them and for him, and they were jealous of him, and by what they did, it was wrong for them to do that. But he understood they sinned, but that God had used their sin to save many from destruction. Because he could see that God's work in his suffering, he was able to forgive them. This verse 7, he concluded, said, God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to keep alive for you many survivors. Again, going back to the NIV, some things, if you study both of them, the NIV and there are different versions. If you go back and look at the NIV, I think it says it a little bit better. There's a footnote in the NIV says offers this alternative translation. It says, to save you as a great band of survivors. It says God saved Jacob's family as part of his covenant promise to Abraham. Jacob's 12 sons would be multiplied into the great nation of Israel while nestled inside Egypt. And more than 400 years later, God called Moses to lead Israel out of Egypt to an even greater deliverance, and that is, of course, the Exodus out of Egypt. Jacob's family came to Egypt as a small clan of weak and needy survivors. They left as a nation of millions. God delivered them from calamity through his grace in his time and for his purpose. It's a footnote in the NIV. So there was a purpose behind all this. And we see that, of course, from the very beginning. I mean, God had a purpose. God had a reason for everything. There was a reason for everything that he did from Adam on all the way through, and there's a purpose for everything that's done today.
We're in such situations. It is very important to stay connected to God on a daily basis, trusting him.
Mm-hmm.
As Christians, that's what we're called to do. I remember some of my combat experiences were preceded by prayer every day. And I came out alive. Because I trusted in God. He knew my heart. And so these are things we go through in life. And we have other situations.
Yeah, we all have things in life that I mean, we have to have him. I mean, we have to go to him all the time, every day, and not just for not just because maybe you got an infirmity or something like that, but we just need to be in constant contact with him daily in our lives to let him know basically we need him. God knows what we need. He knows if we're sick and we need to be healed, and he knows if we need food. He knows the problems we have in life. But we have to go to him and let him know that we care about him and we love him, and we want to we realize that without him we're nothing. Go back a little bit. Something came up. I was reading it. And I put this note in a different place, but I think it's kind of well, no, it comes in the right place. Joseph, of course, sent his brothers back to get his father, and he if you remember, as they were leaving, you remember what he told them? He said, "Don't quarrel." Well, yeah, I was reading that, and when you think about it, you're looking at it, and you're like, what are they going to do? Fuss and fight all the way back home, or what? Or and one source that I looked at, basically, that's what it said. He said maybe Joseph remembered some of the experiences growing up in the family. That maybe that's what it was. But and I'm not a Hebrew scholar by any means. I'm hardly an English scholar. Okay, so I'm a North Georgia scholar. Let's put it that way. Closest to Alabama too. That's right. But the word here that Joseph uses is a word rawgas. Rawgas. That's Hebrew, and it's better translated "do not fear." The Hebrew ragas, and that's spelled R-A-G-A-S, has to do with fear or anxiety, and is often used in the Old Testament to describe a violent earthquake. So that's, according to the Hebrew scholars that I read, that's what he's talking about when he says "do not quarrel." It's not, don't go home, don't go down the road fussing and fighting. Because look at it. Look at it. He said, do not fear. Think about it just a minute. Okay, they go to Egypt. And this man, who happens to be their brother, but they don't know it, he gives them food, but he says, you're going to have to bring your younger brother to me. Well, we can't do that because my father won't let it. Well, y'all going to have to stay till one of you can go back and get him, and the rest of you are going to have to stay. Well, then he comes back, of course, and says, one of you stay, and then the rest of you go back and get him. And Simeon was the one that stayed. You can imagine probably all the way home then, they were like going, are they following us? Are they going to come back? And then they go, and I don't know how long it was. I mean, really, I don't know. But they finally had to go back again. And, of course, Jacob relented and sent Benjamin back. And they go back, and then they get the food and load up everything on their donkeys and whatever. They go back, and they're missing a cup. They put a cup in the bag. Well, here they come after them again. And so, they go from the oldest to the youngest and look in their bags, and lo and behold, it's in Benjamin's bag. So, of course, that, as I said a while ago, I mean, that was a test, I think, from Joseph to see if, would they just leave Benjamin holding the bag and, take off back home? But no, they came back. They came back with him. So that kind of proved to Joseph that they had changed. But the thing here is, to me, that when every time they left, they kind of like looking over their shoulder. Are they coming after us again? Did we do something again that they're going to come after us for? It's kind of like when you experience something like that and things happen like that, you're like, you're kind of looking over your shoulder, to see what's going on. So I think that's what Joseph was telling them when they left. Don't fear, don't be afraid. I'm not coming after you. You can go home and get your family and get the family and bring them all back, and I'm not going to bother you. It's not that they were prone to argue on the way home so much as they feared their lives. What if Joseph had sent his posse after him again? They knew now that it was their brother, but what had they done? They had sold him into slavery. He said, well, he sounded okay back there, but after we get gone, he might think about it. And he said, what, them guys did me wrong. I'm gonna go after them. I mean, that's could be something going through their mind, right? I mean, it would go through my mind. Exactly. Exactly.
Quarrels and frustrations. Well, it had to be a fear about confronting their dad with how is the brother still alive? And maybe between them,
they're trying to explain that one. That's right. That's a good one. Yeah, that's right. But, you know, and what it all boils down to, what? A guilty conscience. You know, it's all boils down to a guilty conscience. A guilty conscience, you know, sometimes, you know, will get the best of us. In this case, it can cause you to flee when nobody's really pursuing you. You know, I mean, you think about, people that do something wrong and, you know, somebody robbed the bank. Well, you know, they might have got away scot-free, but they don't know it for sure. You know, they don't know for sure if they got away scot-free because, I mean, how many people have you seen 30 years later, you know, all of a sudden somebody walk up to them and say, you're under arrest for bank robbery, you know, or whatever, you know, and they don't know for sure if they got away. And so they're always looking over their shoulder. Always looking over the shoulder to see us. And that's kind of what I think, it's kind of what they were feeling right there because, you know, they had did this thing. They had sold him into slavery. They, you know, told their father that wild animals had eat him up. And so they were afraid. Well, that's possible too.
God, he's trying to reiterate that God.
Yeah, I don't. You know, and well, he done said, you know, don't feel guilty about what you did. You know, he's already said that, so he might be trying to reiterate that. You know, I don't know, but you know, it's an interesting point, I think.
God was trying to drive his brothers back to God. That they had essentially abandoned God before, or from that point on, from that point until the beginning of their lives altogether. Yeah. And their daddy, of course, recognized God, but he wasn't that faithful about it. And so he's giving all these people an opportunity to know that there is a God and that God can do what he says.
Absolutely. All right. Any questions or more comments on 1 through 8?
One thing too is, because of my mind is that in this situation, we learn that the truth does bear out. The truth eventually comes out.
Oh yeah.
And we have a secret that's hidden that sooner or later it's going to come out. And like Chris was talking about the worry and stuff like that, these men have been carrying on this secret for 20 years or so, whatever. And now they realize that they didn't have much control over it after all. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I think we do not do is that we do not really give God the credit for having control in our lives. You know, when we get some kind of a bind somehow, then we can try to pull the genie out of the bottle and do something about it. But you don't have any kind of relationship before that.
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, you know, you see it many times. You know, people have infirmities in their life, and they haven't been faithful. You know, they haven't been doing the things they need to be doing. They haven't, you know, been faithful to the church. They haven't been faithful to, you know, a lot of things in their life. I mean, they've lived pretty much a sinful life, and then something happens, and you know, first thing to do is, you know, oh God, please help me. I mean, you know, and you know, I'm not going to say God wouldn't help them, but I mean, because it might be an opportunity for something later. But you're right. I mean, that's the attitude, you know, of people that, you know, first thing they think of when something happens, you know, God, you got to help me.
You know, I have a relationship with God, and we all do in here. But when I experience trials, it makes me realize how much more I need.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you think that you're doing all you can do, or you're trusting in Him, you know, as much as you can, but go through a tough trial, and then it'll show you that
And we all have experienced it. It'll show you how much more we need.
You're right, absolutely. I mean, you know, if we're doing what we're supposed to do every day, then you know, those. I think we can be more assured, you know, during those times when we have trials. I'm sorry. All right, verses 9 through 45, starting with verse 9. I'm going to have to get me a bigger print Bible, I think, or better glasses, one. I don't know which. Start with verse 9. It says, "Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me and do not tarry. You will dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, and your children and your children's children, and your flocks, your herds, and all that you have." Sorry. I've been fighting this thing for 2 weeks, and I thought I was about over it, but it keeps coming back. Hey, Chris, would you read from 10 on through 24 for me?
Dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks, and your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, for there are yet 5 years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have do not come to poverty. And now your eyes see the eyes of my brother Benjamin. And now your eyes see, and the eyes of your brother Benjamin see. It is my mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father of all my honor in Egypt and of all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. He kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. After that his brothers talked with him. When the report was heard in Pharaoh's house, Joseph's brothers had come. It pleased Pharaoh to serve him. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Say to your brother, do this, load your beasts and go back to the land of Canaan. Take your father and your households and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Egypt. You shall eat the fat of the land." And you, Joseph, are commanded to say, "Do this. Take wagons from the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. Have no concern for your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours." The son of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons according to the command of Pharaoh, and gave them provisions for the journey. To each and all of them he gave changing clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 changes of clothing. To his father he sent as follows: 10 donkeys loaded with the goods of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provision for his father on the journey. Then he sent his brothers away, and as they departed he said to them, "Do not quarrel on the way."
Okay. So as the brothers, obviously, they continue to marvel at what's happened as Joseph laid out his plan to deliver the family from the severe famine. The whole family, the father and the entire family, needed to come to Egypt without delay, so that he would live close to them in the land of Goshen, and Joseph would provide and protect them. And Joseph continued to acknowledge God's providence in giving him a position of power to influence over Pharaoh. You remember Pharaoh? I mean, he was so pleased with what was going on that he sent wagons or carts or whatever. I read that it was probably carts with pulled by oxen with 2 wheels. You know, I just threw that in there. I read that. I don't know what they had. I wasn't there, but that's what I read. Okay, so it's just a cart with 2 wheels with oxen. But the Reader's Digest version. Yeah, there you go.
And they were going to go into Egypt for 400 years. That's the beginning of that 400 years.
That's it. I mean, yeah, that's it. I mean, and this is all part of the covenant that God made with Abraham. And as I said a while ago, this is the beginning of their stay in Egypt. When a few years later, as the Bible puts it, a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph came in, and they said, all these people keep multiplying. What are we going to do with them? They're going to take us over one of these days. So they put them in slavery, and they stayed there for 400 years until God called Moses to come and that was all part of God's plan too. I mean, everything was part of God's plan.
That they decided they need God.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you read it, looking back as we read it today, that whole story, and I've been in classes with in Exodus and taught a little bit out of Exodus and everything, and we all agree as we read that story. Of course, we're looking at it from hindsight. I mean, from the history and everything like that. But when we look at it and we read about it, we're thinking, how can they be like that? I mean, just a straight shot to where they were going, and they messed up and had to run around that wilderness for 40 years. I mean, they could have been there in no time, but they couldn't do that. They had to go messing up. We look at it and like, how could they even do that? I mean, I don't believe I'd have done that, but you don't know. I mean, we do a lot of things sometimes. Later on, you think, why did I do that? So. That's right.
Jim?
Yes, sir.
I've got a question on verse 24. I find it interesting that when Joseph sent his brothers on the way, look how it ended up, what his last words to them before they went back to go get their dad. Don't quarrel on the way.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about a while ago.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry if I missed it.
Wake up, Jim.
Why do you think it said that?
Well, that's what we're talking about. The word that's used here is the Hebrew word is rawgas. I can't. It's a Hebrew word, and it means anxiety. It's a word for anxiety or fear.
Okay, and why would you think that he would say that? Is that because they were saying, hey, it was you guys, or they were arguing back and forth, who put him in the well and so forth?
Well, it could have been.
Okay.
Could have been. I mean, we really don't know, but I mean, and I read 2 or 3 different things. Like I said, one did say that Joseph might have remembered how his brothers were, or how the family was when he was growing up before he left. That they were always quarreling and stuff like that.
Could it possibly be, if you remember when Joseph told about his dreams earlier as well as if you remember when Daddy died, the brothers were talking, oh my, he's going to get back at us now. And you remember what he said? Guys, you don't understand that this was all part of God's plan.
Right.
That millions would live.
Yeah.
So I think that I just wonder,
Yeah.
I use the Todd Johnston approach, if this was all part of Joseph understanding,
Yeah.
then this going to, and why he cried the 3 separate times when his brothers came there. So he could see all of this.
Yeah, he could see all of it, absolutely. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it could have a lot to do with that. I mean, part of it, I think, would be was fear that they still wasn't out of the woods yet. I mean,
Siblings,
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he might still be coming after us again. Y'all check your bags, see what you got. There might be something else in there.
I can't help but think that Joseph may have been surprised by his own reaction as well. All these years he may have had a lot of animosity towards his brothers until they showed up, and he had nothing but compassion and mercy for them, and remember how much he has to love.
And God putting him in this position, I think, did that because he was put in this position to see the suffering to see what the people had needs and see people that, you know, I mean, he was put in that position to help these people. And I mean, if he did have a hard heart before that probably softened him.
And the biggest part of this whole story is God's providence. And when did Joseph see it? He was dead to his family, and his family was dead to him, and then one day they show up in his presence. And he can see, he has these interactions over a period of time, and he's putting this together that this is bigger than me and my grievances.
Right.
This is so much bigger. I can see God's been working this whole time. And I don't think he saw that until this point where he didn't see in his troubles, his daily existence, even though good things were happening.
Right, yeah.
That it was actually God making this happen this whole time.
Yeah.
And that's why he's able to be gracious. This is bigger than me. This is God thing. This isn't.
Yeah.
And then you tie that over to our lives and make application. We don't see God working in our lives until much farther down.
Down the road, you're right.
And then we're able to see, wow, that was God helping me make these decisions and these choices, the situations that just happened to me.
I think he knew God was working in his life because he said when he interpreted the dreams that it wasn't him, it was God doing it. So I think he knew it, but you're right. I don't think he really understood the magnitude of it.
I mean, I know that Ron's right. I've looked back and saw where God worked in my life, and I'm like, man, God put that together and made that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
For my good.
Absolutely.
And it's so nice to see. A lot of times you don't see it while it's happening.
You don't see it today.
No, unfortunately, you don't.
I mean, I think over time the years give you more wisdom, and then you may be able to recognize it a little bit easier as you get older. But I think early in life you don't.
No,
It takes a lifetime to really
no.
recognize.
When you're 20, you think you're going to live forever.
I mean, even when you're 40, your 40s.
But there's probably still at least one brother that's thinking, okay, what else does he know that he's not telling us?
Hey, you're probably right.
I know that God's working things out for my good in my life. I don't know how he's doing it a lot of times, and when you see it later, which is awesome. Anyway.
Yeah. So, if we get through this chapter, we'll get through 45 this week. And George can start where he wants to, but if he wants to start in 46, that's okay. But as we already said, Pharaoh offered the best that he had, offered the carts and put them in the best of the land and the best of all of Egypt. Yeah, go ahead and read the last few there.
They went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to their father Jacob. And they told him, Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt. And his heart became numb, for he did not believe them. But when they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said to them, when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. And Israel said, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die.
So Jacob, they come to Jacob, tell him that Joseph is alive, and I mean, who wouldn't be stunned? Hey, Daddy, guess what? Joseph's alive. He's supposed to have died years ago. I mean, who wouldn't be stunned? He was stunned, but everything they brought back with them proved to him that it was true. Joseph, he was stunned by the news that his son brought him, but not only was his beloved son alive, but he was also a ruler in Egypt. Jacob's years of grief was replaced with great joy, and his spirit of Jacob was revived. It says, hope filled Jacob's heart as he declared, my son Joseph is alive. or is still alive, and I will go see him before I die. You know, just a few chapters before, 37, he had said, you know, he wouldn't see him until he, you know, until show. You know, I mean, he, you know, in the afterlife, I guess, you know, he would. That's when he would see him again. He thought he was gone, but you know, here he's saying he can say now, you know, my son is alive, and I can go see him before I die. So, you know, it's you know, this is a great story, but it's a great lesson for all of us. You know, that number one, you know, like, as we've said several times, we need God. We have to have God in our life. You know, it's not something we can just haphazardly do. It's got to be something every day of our life. And God has a plan. He has a plan for us. He has a plan. He had a plan for Joseph. He had a plan from the beginning of the earth and you know, through Abraham, and this is part of the promise to Abraham that he made years before. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Anything else? First bell rang, and I don't. Ted's not here, so I don't know who's ringing the bell. They'll probably ring it again in a second. But we about got as far as we can go tonight, and so we'll end our class here. We're glad that you're with us. For those of you who are at home, we're glad that you could join us tonight, and be here next week if Lord willing. George will be back teaching the class, and George did say last week that we're getting close to the end of Genesis. We've got 49 chapters, so we've got about 3 or 4 left, 3 or 4, and so you know, just be thinking about it. George, you know, he was trying to decide what he wanted to teach on next, but if anybody has any ideas, you know, give them to George. He might do that instead of what he might be thinking. I don't know. But anyway, glad to have you with us tonight. Thank y'all for participation, and we'll see y'all next Wednesday night. Yes, sir.